The first day in Fratanger, I decided not to try change, but I wanted to get used to the cave, to the style, and to the rock. So I decided to try Muy Verdes, and it is an 8C. It is just on the right of change. We were quite lucky on our first day because it was a sunny day after some not so good days. Some friend of us were already there, Marcello, Stefano, and Luca, and they told us the days before we arrived they were not so good. It was one of the first days of August, and it was not so warm. We were lucky in this way too because we were quite lucky with the weather the whole August that used to be I think warmer than it was this year. So we climb all day, maybe even in the sun, and it was not too warm. I decided to try this route for a simple reason because the end is in common with the first speech of change, the last part of the first speech, and the first part of this route is actually the hardest part, and the part in common with change is the easiest part of both route. After the 3 days of travel, I think I was not in my best shape. I was a bit tired from sitting down for hours and hours driving and traveling. And for this reason, I decided not to try this route on site or flash, but just chilling out, try for the first time the moves, studying the route really well, and then I decided to give it a go when I felt ready to send it. Before this route, I warm up on a 7A. It was a very cool traverse on the left of the cave. And then I did a 7C, and then I thought it was quite warm to try the moves of the 8C. So I warm up and put up the quick draws on Muy Verdes. And I immediately noticed that some balls were moving. And I figure out it's usual for this cave of some crags with a lot of wind and close to the sea that balls can be unscrewed from the wind by swinging the quick draws after many years, maybe after the bolting. So some balls in this route were moving, and then after the day after trying change, I figure out some balls were actually missing from the route. They were completely unscrewed from the wind. So later in the next days, I had to screw it with my hands while I was climbing. So with one hand I was hanging on the rock, and with the other hand I was screwing the bolts that were missing. It is a quite fun story, but I will tell you more in the videos of the second part of change, where I can show you which bolts were actually missing. So after two tries, studying very well the moves, I used my third try to screw the bolts that were moving, and this was the fourth go, the send go, and I was quite sure to send it, I think, because I felt quite good, even if it was the first day after 3 days of traveling. But the cracks was really clear for me, and the holes were quite good. Maybe there's just one risky move that I was afraid to fall. That is the next one, which is a really long move that is not super hard, but a bit weird and easy to miss the hold. But it was quite good. And then I rested a bit before the last cracks of the route. It's a traverse with a crimp and heel hooks, and I felt quite comfortable on these moves. and this was the end of the hard part of the route, the end of the traverse. And from here it starts the part in common with the change that goes straight up in a vertical part. And here in the position where I'm resting is the part where I do the rope change in change. And I will tell you a bit more about the rope change in the next videos. And from here the route was not so easy, but I think it was at least the 8C was finished. Change was quite hard still because from after this part there was the second cracks. But I think it was a bit scary to climb it, because even if it was easy, I was scared to do some mistakes and maybe get a little bit more pumped than I wanted. Not on Muy Verdes, but I'm talking about change. And here, after this rest, I was quite sure to send the route Muy Verdes, and I think it was even possible to flash it if I tried with on my first go. So I was quite sure to send it on my second go, but I wanted to be 100% sure to send it, and I used the route for training and warm up for the next days. Even if in this video the route seems quite long, it is actually one of the shortest of the cave. The main cave is on the right part of this route, and the other routes are quite longer. The rest of the routes, the most iconics like Nordic Flower, Nordic Plumber, and Thor's Hammer, starts more on the right of the cave, and they go up until I think the half of the cave is just bolted, but they are like the double of the length of this route. This one is one of the most bouldery route, and even if it seems very long from this video, it is one of the shortest one. So if you want to go to Flatanger, make sure you train a lot with endurance, but also with power, because the routes are super long, but you need a lot of power to pass the cracks, because the style of the routes is quite bouldery, so there are some like really hard section with a good rest between these sections. So you need a lot of power to pass this hard section, but also a lot of endurance, because in the section after section you get pumped, and it's a quite unique style.